What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to the Straight Facts YouTube channel. It's your boy, James Jackson, and I tapped in my guy, Matt Valdovinos again, officially the Straight Facts NFL draft expert and NFL draft analyst. So, Matt V, welcome back. Thanks for coming back on the YouTube channel. We're breaking down position groups, right? So now we're attacking another position group. What you got for us this time, man?
Yes, sir. Today we're doing the wide receivers, one of the most polarizing
Okay.
positions in the sport. We know everyone wants to talk about them, who's the best, who's going where. It's a great class. It has been. It's the third straight really, really talented class that we have. So really excited to break into this.
Yeah, it's going to be real fun. And if you guys have been following the YouTube channel, you guys probably recognize it's going to be a little recurring series. We already went through the QBs, or should I say Matt V and Kyle already went through the QBs. Now me and Matt V are going to go through the wide receivers. And if this board is anything like your QB board, someone's jumping around the board today.
Yes, sir.
We not doing it the conventional cookie cutter way. So why don't you get us started, man? So you said you got 12 receivers for me, right?
Yeah, we're going to talk about 12 today. I think there's a really, really strong 12 in the class. The first two that we're going to talk about, number 12 and number 11, are two guys who are a little bit similar in that they're dynamic players who are going to generate a lot of their yardage after the catch, and it's Skye Moore and Calvin Austin. Calvin Austin from Memphis, Skye Moore from Western Michigan. Calvin Austin, maybe the best athlete between all of the wide receivers, tested the fastest 40 at the combine. Super, super explosive player, very electric with the ball in his hands. Lighter frame can be of concern sometimes, but just an overall electric playmaker that I think someone's going to get and someone's going to turn into a really, really talented downfield threat. And then Skye Moore, number 12. My friend Danny has a comp from that I really, really like, Golden Tate. Super compact, just a nuanced route runner and underneath, and he's going to take the ball and he's going to go generate a lot of yardage for you after the catch. A lot of people like him in somewhere like Kansas City, where Patrick Mahomes can get the ball out to him quickly, something like that, just to get him open, get him in space, and let him go make plays with his legs.
Yeah, Skye Moore is a name that a lot of people might recognize. I'm a little surprised that you have him this low at 12. I've seen him as high as like 5 or 6 on some boards, and some people might say that's a little too high, but I know a lot of people like Skye Moore, and for a lot of reasons you said. I love the Kansas City destination because of his ability to make plays after the catch. He broke 26 tackles just this past year at Western Michigan. Getting the ball and getting yards after the catch. So Skye Moore is one that I'm fine with you having him this low, but I won't be surprised if someone maybe takes a little bit of a gamble, maybe goes and goes higher and takes him above some of these other receivers that may be lower on your board.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think with some of the guys who are going to be a little bit higher than him, they bring a little bit more ceiling to them, and I think that's why I'm more willing to bet on them. But if a team is just looking for an instant producer, I could definitely see Skye Moore coming in that late first, early second. I think that's his ceiling and where he could go, and I think there's a possibility.
Right. Okay. So we got 12 and 11 down. So now we're cracking inside the top 10 of the big board now. Who you got for us?
Yeah, number 10, 9, and 8, we're going to couple up together as well, just because I think they're all big body, kind of X receivers, guys who are going to do a lot for you off on the boundary and making plays. Some of them, first one, Christian Watson's going to be number 10. NDSU, physical freak, physical specimen, big frame, big size, and tested like a freak at the combine. He's a guy who's going to want to get vertical, explode off the line of scrimmage. There's some deficiency in his route running and his ability to separate. And coming from NDSU, there's going to be a skill jump. So those are my concerns, but I know some people that are really, really high on him and think that he has the highest ceiling in the draft. Next up, number 9 is John Metchi out of Alabama. Some people, some people think that John Metchi is just as good as his teammate Jamison Williams, who some people has as the best receiver in the class. Metchi, a smooth, solid body, sure-handed receiver, did a lot for Alabama in his time, played off of his teammates really, really well. Just kind of a complementary passing piece that I think is going to work off the boundary really, really well. And she's going to be a consistent target and a security blanket for whatever team he goes to. And then number 8, George Pickens. Pickens, if he didn't tear his ACL, might be really, really high on this list or in a lot of people's list. And so I think he's kind of the value that not a lot of people are talking about. Big body, explosive, a nasty, nasty player. He's got an attitude, and teams are probably going to worry about some of the hot-headed stuff that he's done. He's made some really dumb stuff on the field. He's poured water bottles on people and stuff, but he's, aggressive as a blocker. There's a lot to really, really like about George Pickens, and I think I wouldn't be surprised if he's, does come out to be the value pick, that day 2 receiver who ends up being, one of the most productive guys in the class.
Yeah, but I mean, all three of these guys are guys that I wouldn't be surprised if teams took a gamble on. I'll start with George Pickens just because he comes from the national championship winning team. He's got the most buzz around him. He even came back to play in that national
Yep.
championship even after the torn ACL, which is crazy. And I've heard a lot of people say this, and maybe not the body or the physical presence, but the play style and kind of demeanor on the field, like DK Metcalf. And it even kind of transfers to the hot headed stuff sometimes, where he's a physical receiver. He'll get nasty, he'll get an attitude, but it might boil over to the wrong side. And we've seen that even with DK in the last couple of years, hit the breaking point on the wrong side. But I really like George Pickens, and like I agree with you. Before the ACL injury, we might have been looking at one of the top, if not the top receiver in this draft class. And speaking of that, I had John Mitchy as that maybe 2-3 years ago, like coming into this
Yeah.
last couple of years. Mitchie was up there for me. He like
Hmm.
I liked him even better than Jamison Williams, and then Jamison Williams explodes on the
Exploded.
scene,
Yeah.
absolutely explodes on the scene. But I never wanted to forget about Mitchie. I always thought that he
Hmm.
could have been the one to Jamison Williams too, and I still think he has the ability to be just a really productive receiver in the NFL. I've seen it all in Alabama. Just because someone exploded above him doesn't mean that his skill isn't there. And I still believe he has a really high ceiling, somewhere he can really get to in the league.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think John Metchie is one of the probably safer prospects or safer wide receivers in the class where you know what you're going to get. He's going to come in. He's just going to be an asset for you.
Yeah, he's going to be really good. You can't. That's an Alabama receiver. If there's one thing I'm going to stop wondering about is if an Alabama receiver is pro ready. I'm just going to stop wondering about it. If he's coming out, then I know that wide receiver class and that wide receiver room has gotten him ready. John Metchie is no different from all the other Alabama receivers we've seen from the past 5 to 7 years who have I've yet to
Hmm.
see a letdown, really.
Ohio State's starting to get like that too, because we'll talk about
Yeah,
some of their
a
guys here
lot
in
of
a
trying
bit.
them out. They got two of them. They got two of them.
But moving on, number 7, Jahan Dotson, Penn State, a Pennsylvania kid.
Yes, sir.
Super, super explosive player, very, very light footed, very quick. Great routes, very, very anticipatory route runner. He plays what the defensive backs are giving him, right? If they're going to give him a back shoulder, he's going to fake the back shoulder, play the blind spot, get open across the field. Dominant out of his breaks, is really, really keen on selling, and just has a large route running profile. And he gets open, he creates separation, which is the end all be all at the NFL level. It is all about that. Now there's different ways to go about that, but he does it.
Right.
So that, there's a lot to like. There's yak potential with how explosive of an athlete he is. I have some concerns with the size and just, can he take a beating? How high are you drafting him? Because, if you're drafting him as a late first round pick, like some people think he could be, then there's going to be expectation and volume, right? He's going to get 60, 65, 70 receptions, probably minimum in his first year. I just worry, are you going to be able to take that at the NFL level? But he hasn't shown signs that he can't. So I'm excited. I think he's going to be a great player. He's very explosive and just a dynamic athlete.
Yeah, very biased Penn State, football fan, Penn State football follower. Also, shout out to our head
Big
honcho at
dog.
Up All Game Number, LeVar Arrington. He can't talk enough about this dude, obviously. And a couple years ago, a lot of people liked another receiver coming out of the draft from Penn State, KJ Hamler. And I'm telling you, if you like
Mhm.
KJ Hamler, you absolutely should love Jahan Dotson. And I think that the NFL is kind of moving towards a type of play that suits him. Like I agree, the
Yep.
size isn't great, but his ability to separate at the line of scrimmage and then create separation during his route, a la a Chris Godwin, another Penn State receiver. Like I don't think there's a coincidence there. I think that suits him, and then you get him to get him the ball in space in the NFL. He's got home run potential every single time he's in space. But I think there's definitely a place for Jahan Dotson in the NFL. Is he going to be high first round pick? No, he may slide to mid to late first or latter rounds, but I think he's going to be a really good receiver still.
Absolutely. And I think,
Yeah.
like you said, with the NFL's infatuation with getting into a spacing type of
Mhm.
offense and spread out the defense, that Jahan Dotson is really going to eat as we continue to move towards that.
He's going to be another footwork at the line kind of guy. Like he's going to be another guy where you're going to be able to tell that he's open as soon as the ball is snapped. The footwork at the line is going to
Absolutely.
create all the separation that he needs.
Yep. Now moving on to number 6. This is my big hot take for receivers. These next two.
It is.
I have Jamison Williams as wide receiver 6.
Ooh,
JMO
people
is a
go
great player.
they're mad at you for that one,
Yeah,
Matthew. They're
some
gonna be
people
mad at
think
you for
he's
that
wide
one.
receiver 1.
Yeah.
There's a lot that goes into this. Like I talked with Kyle, the quarterbacks. I do my board as if I was the GM of a team and I needed to make the selection,
Mm-hmm.
and it was my decision to make. So the ACL does play a little bit into it, but not a ton because of how far we are in sports medicine and how quickly
Mm.
we've seen people recover
And I
from
and I
ACLs
watched
and
I
bounce
watched
back.
his teammate come back from it last year. Jalen
Exactly,
Waddle seems fine.
exactly.
So yeah.
Right, and we're talking about like George Pickens, who is not that
Mm.
far removed from an ACL. So
Devontae Smith. We got
yeah,
all of them. We got all of them.
exactly. So I'm not
Mm.
super concerned, but there are, that's something that needs to be addressed in the evaluation. Um, he is a dynamic deep threat. He's the best deep threat in the class. I absolutely agree with that. I think some people are overstating how great of a deep threat he's going to be in the NFL level.
Mm.
A friend of mine had an iconic quote that I really agree with. And it's that people are making him out to be Tyreek when he's more Will Fuller, which I think is pretty accurate. I think Will Fuller, obviously the big problem is health.
I was about to say,
Um,
is that an insult to
that's what I'm
Jamison
saying.
Williams?
It's not.
Is
It's
that a
not.
bad thing?
Not at all, because Will Fuller is a super productive player and a very valuable player. The issue is he hasn't been able to stay healthy. And I'm not comparing Jamison Williams, the player, to or health to Will Fuller's health. I'm just comparing their
Mm.
play on the field. Will
Right.
Fuller was a first round pick. Will Fuller went like 21st, I think. That's right around
Mm-hmm.
where I would be comfortable taking Jamison Williams right now. And so I just think, the dynamic ability is absolutely there. There's potential for Yak. The light frame concerns me a little bit. The hands aren't great. I don't think he's a phenomenal route runner. I think he's just faster than everyone and more explosive than everyone. So I think he's still a bit raw as a receiver. There's concerns that litter the report, the scouting report. Is just that people really want to find the next Tyreek. They want to find elite deep threats to stretch the field, and I think they're just trying to plug whoever can fit the bill, and that's not good. That's just not good for the player. That's not good for the evaluation process. I just don't think that's how it should be done. And like I said, Will Fuller is by no means a dig. It's just that's what it is. I think Jamison Williams is closer to that than maybe the best deep threat in NFL history.
And I hear that, and I love your purist take on it. You're absolutely an NFL draft analyst. Let me bring you over to the novice side, because over here, let me tell you, we don't care how it should be done. If we can find that next Tyreek Hill, even that next Will Fuller, we'll take that chance, because guess what? Tyreek Hill's not the greatest at route running. Guess what? Will Fuller's not the greatest at route running. Guess what they both can do is just run past everybody. And if you pair them with a Patrick Mahomes or a Deshaun Watson, you see what they both can do. Before the suspension, Will Fuller was going crazy with Deshaun Watson, taking them to the playoffs and such, having a great 1-2 punch right there. So I think, yes, people are infatuated with finding it, and they think they have it with Jamison Williams. And if they think they have that, if they think they can find the next, but just zone buster or just coverage buster, they're gonna take them. They're gonna take number one, because now I got guys in the league with arms all over the place, And if I'm a team who has a very high pick, like and I know he's not slated to go here, but like a New York Jets, I have a guy with Zach Wilson, who has crazy arm talent, who might be able to just get it down the field to him. I just wouldn't be surprised. I see why he's number one, but you put a great insight to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I understand the value. And it's also, going to be a team by team basis. Maybe a team who doesn't want to air it out or who can't air it out to that level won't consider him as high, and someone who needs that or wants that, I get it. But this is why my rankings are coming down to it, that I think that I need a more complete receiver above him, to someone who I know, regardless of situation, is going to come in and give me numbers and is going to produce for me.
And I actually do think it's good that you provide that perspective, because I think he is probably faster than 99.9% of cornerbacks and safeties he's going to face in college. So yeah, he gets away with all these nuances that, people don't see, and you're going to have to bring it to light. So if he does slide on draft day, we can point back to this video and say, hey, we knew, man. We knew why.
Now, coupling with this, Jamison Williams falling out of the top 5 wide receivers is kind of,
Right.
or falling out of the top 4 is kind of wild. So him falling out of the top 5 is the big one for me, is because I have Purdue's wide receiver David Bell at wide receiver 5, which is the highest I think of anyone that I know. Gives me like Pierre Garcon vibes, 6'1" ish, thicker frame,
Strong, yeah, strong
strong,
runner.
adequate athletic, adequate athletic ability to take it to the house if he needs to. Very, very powerful hands, strong body control. Overall, just one of the more filled in, complete receivers in the class. I think he lacks high end talent, right? He's not one of the 5 or 6 fastest guys in this class. He's not one of the 5 or 6 biggest guys, but he kind of does. He has everything going for him. Everything he does is a strength. There's no real weakness that I can pinpoint into his profile. And to me, that's just, I'm getting a guy who, in regardless of what situation he goes into, he's going to give me numbers. Now, Jamison Williams, high end, probably better, right? Maybe an elite Jamison Williams years is like 1,500 yards and 14 touchdowns because he ends up in Kansas City or something, right? And that happens, and I understand that that's the best case. But if it's a worst case, right? Maybe he's only getting 600 in a situation where he goes to, I don't know, like in Atlanta right now with Marcus Mariota, and he just doesn't have a strong year. Whereas David Bell, I feel, regardless of what situation I put him in, he's going to go get 850 yards, 6 touchdowns every single year, regardless of what's happening around him. And if the team is good around him, he's got a chance to go really be a really, really talented number 2.
Yeah, so David, I was just that last part, that last sentence was literally where I was going to start. Is his purpose with David Bell? Are you drafting him to be a number 1? People might argue if I'm going inside the top 5 of a ranking board, I'm drafting these guys to be a number 1 receiver. But if my purpose is to get a very high end number 2, if I had a number 1 last year, or I have a number 1 on my team already, David Bell, you're saying, fits this billing perfectly for that.
Yeah, and my other thing is, people want to touch on the wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2 thing. What about Chris Godwin, right? Is Chris Godwin wide receiver 2 to Mike Evans?
Yeah, because it depends on the day. Yeah, because he's
and so
right, but he's the most targeted receiver in the NFL.
And I think that's a profile that David Bell fills into a little bit too. He's got a similar build, and it's not an elite athlete, and it's not a super sudden player, but just someone who's a smooth, consistent, does it all, and that's why he's getting that target, right? He's going to be where he's supposed to be. He's going to get there on time, in rhythm, and so that's why I really, really like David Bell, and I just don't see that floor. And I think these are guys that you can really, really depend on to be a producer. It's kind of a pig if you're taking him, you feel good because you're not going to miss.
Right. Hey, let's not undervalue the FA he gonna beat our player.
That's what I'm saying.
We need that. All right, we number 4, right?
These are the elite receivers. These are the guys that I'm taking top 20. Okay. So these are the guys.
I think I know the 4. I'm interested in the order.
Know the 4. Yeah,
I'm interested in the order.
Okay. So number 4, we're gonna go Drake London out of USC.
Okay, that's where I thought you were going to start for.
Yeah, I'm definitely not into the Drake London wide receiver 1 talk that some people want to subscribe to. I understand like the loving the profile and stuff. I don't think he's a dominant enough athlete at his size to be. I think he's a phenomenal athlete, but he's not DK. He's not
right.
Yeah, he's not Julio, which some people want to make them out to be. Dominant jump ball receiver, phenomenal, excellent. Throw it up. You feel good about your chances to bring it down. People like to say he turns the 50s into 60-40, 70-30s. Former basketball player, 2 years at USC, just a tall, 6'3", little slender. I would like him to add on a little bit more weight. Played in the slot his first 2 years and then went out to become the X receiver at USC and became the most targeted receiver in the country. USC's whole offense really was just give it to him, let him do. And he put him on his back until he broke his ankle. And I think there's value in that. I think he brings value as a yak receiver. I think he does have that versatility that you could use him in that big slot Michael Thomas role or throw him out to your X. Either one works. We'll see how high he goes. I do wonder if maybe a team like the Jets at 10 decide that he's their top receiver because, like you said about Zach Wilson's arm, he's got the ability to just go up and give it to him. You've got Elijah Moore underneath. Like, I guess that makes sense to me. While I don't love the idea of Drake London as someone's top receiver, when the logic all falls into it and everything kind of meets, I get it. I get it. And I understand. And that's why some people love him.
And I really like his profile. Like you said, I really like his profile. I don't like him as number 1. I'm concerned with the break end speed. I know it's not the end all be all for a receiver with his frame, but to be a number 1 receiver and running like the 4.6s, which is what he's slated right now in his 40, that doesn't really excite me. Like I would, especially coming off an ankle injury, that may even be, sub 4.6 now. Now we're talking really dangerous territory. But you talk about the jump ball receiver, he's going to be an incredible red zone target. And I do love the fact that he went from the slot to the X. And at his size, it tells me that I can put him in every position, and and he can run every route in the route tree. That definitely boosts his stock a little bit.
So that's the big concern. Despite USC having him in a lot of places, it still wasn't a ton of versatility in his routes. Like the Ohio State guys, they have their route tree is a whole
Extensive
blossom,
route
right?
tree, right?
Jamison Williams and Drake London, the two things that I do also, that I mentioned is that I don't think they have a super complex route tree. And it's not to say that they can't do it, but that's just not something that they did often. Drake London doesn't create separation super, super well. He has shown to play DB blind spots at times, so he has an understanding of leverage, which is good, and that'll benefit him in back shoulders. But that's the biggest question mark on his profile is he going to separate?
Well, he's been relying on the I can go up and get it better than you can.
Exactly.
But I can teach technique. I can't teach go up and get it.
You are not wrong.
I can teach technique.
Yeah, we can give him more routes, right? That's not, right. But it's so I do think there's going to be a bit of a learning curve, but that's why he's slated at number 4. Yep. Coming in number 3, we've got our first Buckeye, and it's Chris Olavey. The senior came back, dominated, produced super, super smooth. The reason that I like and my problem with Jamison Williams that we had talked about being, the best deep threat in the class, the reason that I don't value it so high is because I think guys like Chris Olavey are excellent deep threats in their own regard. And Garrett Wilson, who we'll talk about in a bit as well. Olavey, 4.3 athlete, phenomenal route runner, very, very excellent understanding of pace, operating in blind spots, winning with leverage. He's sure-handed, and he's athletic enough and possesses the stop-start that, he's not the Jameson level of athlete, but he's so much better as a route runner that he's creating separation off his movement alone. And then he also has the ability to break away speed. So you're creating as much possible separation between you and the defender and giving your quarterback the best target. And so I think that's super, super valuable. But we've talked about, the wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2. I think Olavey probably does profile better as a wide receiver 2 off of a more substantially sized receiver. But could he be the best wide receiver 2 in the game? I could absolutely see it. I could absolutely see him having like a 1,300-yard season off of,
Or you put him on a team, who has an offense like Kansas City, who almost brings like a positionless basketball style to football, where it's like, we just have receivers. Forget them 1, 2, 3. We just have receivers. We're going to put them anywhere we want to, and they're going to run routes. I will say, objectively, I know Olavey might not be the best receiver on the board. He's my favorite, though. I do think at Ohio State, I saw him catch every route possible, every run every route, catch every ball possible, from the jump balls to the intermediate over the middle throws to the home run, breakaway speed type throws. I saw him do it all. So he's just personally my favorite, and I do think, whether he wants to be a number 1 or he wants to be the best number 2 in the league, wherever he goes, he has that. He's gonna be successful.
Absolutely, and I think he profiles pretty close to like Devontae Smith. And so whatever you want to view Devontae as, that's I think that's pretty close to what you get with Olavey.
It really depends on who's the other receiver. That's what it is. Yeah.
Or it's just a 1A, 1B like we got in Tampa or we had in Dallas. But moving on, number 2, I have another Buckeye, Garrett Wilson, who I think is probably the consensus wide receiver 1. A good friend of mine, Jordan Reed on ESPN now, told me that his comp is Stephon Diggs. I definitely see that a little bit, but I think Wilson gives you an extra gear that Stephon doesn't give you. And I think he gives you a little bit more frame to work with, to put on a little bit more muscle and size. And I think he's better in contested situations. So I think Garrett Wilson, if you're starting with Stephon, that you've even got a little bit of room to grow out of that. And so really, really tangible upside. He kind of gives me another one that I think of is like the perfect in between of CeeDee Lamb and Terry McLaurin, where you're getting a guy with the athletic ability to move down the field faster than the cornerbacks with all intensive route tree, get open at will. Also has excellent body control, great strong hands. He's going to go win some concentration drop issues every now and then. But minimal downside to Garrett Wilson's profile, like very minimal weakness, kind of like the perfected version of what David Bell is.
Yeah, I mean we're nitpicking when we're getting to these top 3 guys of where their weaknesses are. I don't even think we named a weakness for Chris Olave. So the fact that we even got to
he's kind of light. That's it.
That's yeah. So the fact that we got to some kind of weakness for Garrett Wilson, I heard someone say sometimes he makes catches harder than they have to be. Maybe
Sure, sure.
jump,
I can see that. Yeah,
miss timing
some
balls.
Odell syndrome
Yeah,
almost.
exactly. Wanting to make a highlight out of stuff that doesn't need to be a
Mhm.
highlight. But my counter to that is, but he caught it. I don't
Yes, he
think he can
did.
make it.
Yes, he
He can make it as
did.
hard as he wants to. If he caught it, then he caught it. That's what I
Mhm.
needed him to do. I like him with the Stephon Diggs comp. I do think he's a little bit more fast twitchy than Stephon Diggs is, and I think Stephon Diggs in his route is a little bit more technical, but that's because he's an NFL vet now.
Yep,
I
he's
think
been
that
in it
comes
for a while. Yep.
the pace of his routes are the best in the NFL. So if Garrett Wilson can get to that and combine it with just all the raw athletic ability that he has, a real special talent, real special talent.
He's good. And then my wide receiver one, I've been on this for a while. Traylon Burks out of
I was going to
Arkansas.
say this might surprise a couple people.
People jumped off after the combine. They saw the 40. They were like, oh no.
Mhm.
And bro's the size of a linebacker, right? Bro's like 230. I do not care
Huge.
that he ran like a 4.55 or whatever it was, or a 4.60. It does not matter to me. Kind of like AJ Brown in DK Metcalf's frame, right?
Mhm.
Just a dude who in the offseason he hunts boars with a pocket knife. Like bro's crazy, huge frame, dynamic athlete with the ball in his hands, creates yards after the catch, mitts, catches whatever's thrown to him. I think when you talk about the upside, if you can just get him to create a little bit more separation with his route running, like you said, you can teach technique. You can't teach this frame, this concentration at the catch point, this body control, and this dominance after the catch. And for his size, excellent athlete, strong, acceleration. He said it best when someone asked him about his long speed. He said, "Turn on the tape and tell me if anyone's ever caught me."
Yeah, yeah.
So
The
go
tape
ahead.
don't lie.
The tape does not lie. The tape
Men
never
lie
lies.
and women lie. The tape
The
don't
tape
lie.
never lies.
A lot of people are down on Traylon Burks. So I think for things that were kind of outside of his control, Arkansas had the offense where the idea was just kind of like, Drake London, get him the ball in any which
Yep.
way.
Yep.
And his average yards per route is like 3.6 or something. It's minuscule
Mhm.
because it's a lot of bubble screens, a lot of end arounds, a lot of quick slants, a lot of them just get him the ball and watch him go. And when he did, he went averaging 9 yards after the catch. Yeah, he dominated. So but the 3.6 yards per route, he doesn't call his routes. So that's not something that is under his control.
Yep.
So a lot of people don't like the output. I haven't seen the extensive output, so they're down on him for that. But if I look at the size, I look at the ability, and I know that as an NFL team, if I'm confident in my ability to develop a receiver, he has all the ability to. If I put the technique, like you said, if I put the technique with this ability, we might got the next one. So hey, but I'm gonna hold people off when they try to jump on you in the street for putting them number one because it's there there.
And I think also with his play style, because he's so good after the catch, you have a floor for production while you're still working on developing him, right? You can still fill him in that Arkansas role, that get him an underneath look, get him a screen, put the ball in his hands and let him work from there. He's still going to be able to produce and turn out tough yards for you while he's developing those skills to be a multifaceted receiver.
Right. All right, then. Matt V came by and dropped his top 12 receivers, man. So we got the quarterbacks done. We got the receivers done. We know what position group we're attacking next?
I think we're going to do running backs. I think that's the move.
I like that. We're going to attack the running backs next. So you guys keep it locked to the Straight Facts YouTube channel because Matt V is going to come back. We're going to break down all the position groups. We got the quarterbacks, and this time we got the receivers. Matt, appreciate you as always, man. It's been a great one. Like and subscribe, y'all.